Hello everyone, we are another nerdy couple, and in today's video, we are talking about the Eternals. We're doing our review, we're getting back to the reviewing ways, but before we get into that, I just want to do a quick little thing. Some of you guys might have heard of the project called Team Seas, which is something that Mr. Beast and Mark Rober started to clean up the ocean, and they said that for every $1 that is donated, they'll remove 1 pound of trash from the ocean. So I figured, that would be a really good thing to be involved in. And obviously we're a very tiny channel. So what I'm willing to do is for every view that the video gets, I would donate 10 cents to Team C's, up to $500, just because, we're small YouTubers.
We don't have that kind of cash.
Right? But I also do a minimum of $5 or $10. I haven't really decided yet, just because, we might not get enough views for $5 or $10 either. But anyway, with that being said, we're getting into the review of the Eternals. We're starting off unspoiler, and then later on we'll get to the spoiler. So if you haven't seen it yet,
not to spoil.
So if you haven't seen it yet, don't worry. We're not gonna get into the nitty gritty of exactly what goes on. We're just gonna give you our thoughts real quick of did we like it?
Right.
Would we recommend you watch it?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So starting off, I went into the Eternals kind of
yeah.
Okay.
Me too.
And I hadn't seen a lot of trailers for it. I hadn't seen anyone really talking about it. So I was just kind of meh about it. I wasn't excited. I was actually tired. We watched it Friday night.
At 8 o'clock.
Right. And I had a full day of work before then.
Right.
So I'm coming into it already tired and just kind of this is going to be a boring movie. I'm going to fall asleep. I don't want to do this. But
yeah.
No, it was so good.
Yeah.
I still think Shang-Chi was probably better.
I don't know. I never really thought about that until right now.
Yeah, because we didn't get a chance to review Shang-Chi just because we watched it so late.
Right.
But Shang-Chi was really good.
I did like Shang-Chi.
Good.
I don't know, because for me, it took a while for me to feel connected to the characters in Shang-Chi.
That's true.
But with the Eternals, I feel it happens quickly, but at the same time, it feels very broken up. Because I don't think this is a spoiler. They flip-flop back and forth between present day and things that happened in the past a whole bunch.
Right.
A
really
whole bunch.
Yeah. There's times where I was is this happening now? Oh, no. Those people are wearing
togas.
Yeah, not togas, but
robes or whatever.
I'm trying to think burlap is what I was trying to get at.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so there was a lot of that. And at first I was man, can we please just have a movie? But that's something that I was able to look past, and it was still a very enjoyable movie.
Yeah, and I think it helped to build the characters too. I got to know them better, and you were saying with Shang-Chi, you didn't really get them as much.
Right. With
this, having those back and forth, you get to know more about them and get to meet the characters and really see them together and see them apart, and
And in one of those back and forths, something very important happens for the first time that sets the stage for my favorite character in the movie, who is Gilgamesh, but I won't get into why he's my favorite character right now.
I love Gilgamesh.
Yeah, he is awesome. And so
he was pretty good.
Right.
I think I liked all of them. I don't know who my favorite was. I don't know.
I think my top 2 favorites were Gilgamesh and Phastos.
Okay. Phastos is pretty
Phastos
cool.
was really good.
I love Phastos too. Man, I love them all.
Yeah.
Really. Because I loved Kingo. I think he made me laugh so much.
Right.
He was so great.
Yeah.
And then Cersei's good. She's the main character,
right.
You want to get to know her, but
yeah.
I feel like they did kind of what they did, not they, but movies did with Bella Swan in Twilight, in that she was a nothing character, so you could kind of put yourself on her.
Oh, okay.
That's something that they do. I'm sure there's other instances of that, but they don't give them a lot of personality so that you could put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
And so she didn't seem to have a lot of substance for that reason, so that you could be Cersei.
Yeah.
And you could think, oh, is that what I would do in this situation, kind of thing.
Right.
But I don't know. And I liked Icarus. And
yeah,
I liked
he was good. The fast girl?
Yeah, the fast girl.
I don't know her name.
We can't
remember her name. I don't know. But yeah.
And then I really liked having Jon Snow in it. What was his name? Dane Whitman?
Yeah.
In the movie, he was Dane Whitman.
Yeah, because you expect him because I mean, like I never saw any of the trailers or anything like that, so like I didn't know what role he would be playing.
Right.
So like I expected him to be like one of the Eternals.
Right.
But then he's just like some dude who wants to get turned into a giraffe.
So cute. But yeah, so yeah, I like them all.
Right. Yeah. And what was it? Like so and I like how like they kind of get into like what a celestial is and like what their whole like deal is and like what they want, like what they do. Because at this point we've seen Ego, who was real, but he seemed like a mean one, in a kind of way. And then we have this one like Aramesh or something like that.
Wait, so Ego is the celestial?
Yeah.
In the same way that Aramesh is?
Yeah.
Okay, because they look totally different.
They look totally different. Yeah.
Ego's a
Ego's
planet.
Yeah, but he's a celestial.
Oh, I didn't know.
I believe. Right. But I think in this movie, like we get introduced to so many new characters, and like I feel like they did a good job of being like, yeah, like these are good characters. I like it.
Like you wanna get to know them, and like so at the beginning I was thinking about how they haven't really done a real like a movie like this where it's like a bunch of characters that you're seeing for the first time all in this one movie, other than Guardians. And I did not like Guardians 1.
Hot take.
Yeah, I mean, like, that was just me. I found it a little boring the first few times I watched it, but I think they did a really good job of, like, you get to know all the characters and you like them all in this movie.
Right.
And, like, they did a good job of, like, giving each person their time in the sun, similar to how they've done with the other movies when they bring them together, you know?
Right. Yeah. And something else that they did well in this movie that I thought they were going to do poorly was the overall like villains of the movie, because like, you know, you're like they give us these monsters, the deviants, and I was just like, okay, like we're fighting monsters because they're monsters, you know, like I don't like it's not like it wasn't very interesting to me,
right?
But then later on, like you understand more about them and then more about, you know, like more in depth about the villains and stuff like that, and it actually became pretty good in terms of like villain wise and like conflict.
Yeah, it gets like tense, and you're like, oh gosh, what's happening, and like, how are they gonna solve this, and how are they gonna fight this villain, and you know, all those kinds of things, and it's like, ooh.
Yeah. And one of my favorite parts of the movie that's a non-spoiler is when Kit Harington and I forget his name, but the actor for Robb Stark, like they meet face to face on camera at first, and like you just have this kind of like awkward silence of like they kind of look at each other like, do I know you? And then, you know, because we saw it on opening day, you know, it was a full theater and like everybody was laughing, and it was like it was just such a not a new experience because it's something that we've had before, but like an odd one because it's been so long since we've seen a movie the day it came out.
Right.
You know, like I think it was Endgame.
Yeah.
That was the last time we saw a movie that day. And my favorite part of Endgame was when Captain America just appears like...
Oh, that one's good too. I thought you were...
Oh, wait, no, that was Infinity War
that I'm
thinking
War.
about.
I was thinking of Endgame when he gets the...
Obviously.
Yeah.
Right. But what I'm remembering is Infinity War where he's behind the train and literally the entire theater like erupted in clapping and stuff like that.
They just go wild.
Right.
But no, and I thought that was so funny, and I thought it was funny that her name was Cersei.
Yeah.
That she was Cersei, and then they were in the movie with her.
And something else that's always interesting. So we have one character that we didn't talk about was Athena.
Oh yeah, she was good.
She was good. One thing that's interesting, you know, them being Eternals and them being on Earth for a while, and like, you know, back in the day they were like, you know, defending against monsters and stuff like that. Like you get the legends because like one of the main characters is Icarus. And one of the other characters, Sprite, made up a story about Icarus, about how he flew too close to the sun, which is the legend that we all have today. And then Athena, being, you know, one of the best warriors on the Eternals, is Athena,
the goddess of war. And she, they even say that she fought and defended Athens, was like their warrior kind of thing. And so like that's where that legend comes from.
Right.
I was really hoping to get more legends like that of the other people.
Yeah.
They didn't have it.
They didn't. But it was good. I mean, I liked what we had with them. And I'm like Gilgamesh is a name that's familiar to me.
Right.
But I don't know what
I think there is like a Gilgamesh in history that's like really strong and fought and stuff like that, you know, defended places.
Right. But other than that, I don't really know. And I don't think I have any more non-spoiler things to talk about.
Okay,
Do
so
you?
no. Oh, one thing that I do want to say before we go into spoilers is watch the movie.
Watch the movie.
It was really good. Clearly, we liked it.
Right.
Definitely go watch it.
Let's give it our rating now for the non-spoiler view. I would give it a 7 out of 10.
Whoa, that's where my brain was. I was gonna be like, I think a 7.
Right.
Like, it's good, but it's not like amazing.
Right.
I don't need to watch it again tomorrow.
No.
Like, a 7.
Yeah, I almost gave it an 8 out of 10, but then my body was like, no, dude, it's a 7. Like, it's a 7.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't go any lower than a 7 for me, honestly.
Right. Like, 7 was the only number that was in my head. I was there like, 7? Or
Right.
what about, because of this, maybe 7.
Right.
So, definitely 7 out of 10. I think it was really good. I think you should go watch it. It's good.
Right.
And then big screen, obviously, in the movies, you
Fun
see
times.
it and it's like, you know?
Exactly.
And it's very, like, it's very cinematic. Like, there's a lot of, like, cool things. There were some times where I was like, that CGI is not great.
Okay.
And, like, you could see, like, it was very, like there were times when with Icarus that I was like, that's a stunt double, or like that's just CGI.
Yeah,
like he looked a little not himself.
There was one time that like he was standing straight up and he flew from like one spot over here to over here, but like his body didn't move at all. And like I understand like you fly, like you can do that, but like it was very much so that like they took a picture of him and they like dragged it over to the side of the screen, you know?
Yeah, there were like little points like that I was like, But I'm still really glad that we saw it in like theaters, because like there were also parts that were like super cool and like with the volcanoes and all that stuff. So.
Right. But with that being said, if you have not seen the movie, don't watch anymore. Stop it. If you don't want any spoilers, don't watch right now.
Yeah. Pause. Come back.
Exactly.
After you watch the movie.
After you watch the movie. If you have seen the movie or don't care about spoilers, we're getting into it.
Spoilers.
Right now.
Look, spoilers.
Spoilers.
We're not going to put something there. We don't have that skill.
Of course not. So, the first thing I want to talk about, which was the first inclination I had in the movie as to there's something more about the villains. There's something more to this story than just these deviants who are monsters, who are bad, right? So, the first deviant that we see in present day is in London. And Cersei is on a date with Jon Snow.
Dane Whitman.
She's on a date with him, and Sprite is walking them home with them. And then a deviant comes and tries to attack them, and Cersei has to reveal her powers to Dane for the first time, and he's like, what? Yeah. And whatever.
It's funny because right before is when he's asking her, like, are you a wizard? Because some, like, strange things happen.
Right.
And, like, in the scene before that, when there's the earthquake, you see her, like, turn the thing that's going to fall on the kid into dust.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why didn't that kid say anything?
Right.
Like, that's something strange to happen.
Right.
But yeah, so he asks like, "Oh, are you a wizard?" Whatever, blah blah blah. And then this deviant comes out, and then so she has to go fight him.
Right.
And so she's doing all these things, and he's like, "What is happening?"
Right. But her powers are not like I think she's one of the fighter Eternals, because there's like the fighter Eternals and the thinker Eternals.
Noticia.
Yeah.
News.
So I think she's one of the fighter ones, but like her power is kind of like lame, in that like she just turns something into something else. Like she can turn a rock into air, or a rock into water.
You get that if you saw it.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, like she's fighting this deviant, and she tried to put it in sand. I was like, gotcha. But the deviant just gets out. But anyway.
Well, yeah. So she turns the floor into sand.
Right.
He sinks, and then she turns it into like back to cement.
Right. But whatever.
Yeah, it's more of a defense tactic, not really a
fighting.
Fight. Yeah, it's more of the defensive than offensive.
Right. But then, while this is going on, Icarus comes in and he punches the crap out of the deviant, right? But while they're doing that, you know, he's like, all right, I've knocked out the deviant, I've killed the deviant, it's all good. And then we see the deviant heals itself, and it's like, what? You can do that? And then the deviant's fine, and then like they keep on fighting it a little bit more, but it runs away. And then they're like, that's weird. It has Ajax power, and Ajax is the leader of the Eternals. It just healed itself. And they're like, no, that's not what happened, right? So they're like, let's go talk to Ajax. And they go and they talk. They go to South Dakota, which is where Ajax is at. And they go and try to find her. They get to her house, and it's all beat up. And there she is on the floor, dead. And as soon as she was dead on the floor, And, like, I knew, bro, they're not going to have her get killed by a deviant off screen and just be like, yeah, she died. Unless something went down, okay? And something went down because Icarus, he's no Superman, okay? He's a Homelander,
man. And so I was telling Brian during that first scene where they're all coming out of, like, the ship for the first time, I was getting so much, like, The Boys vibes with, like, Homelander and A-Train and, like, all this stuff of just these heroes that are not that great, you know? And so then we see this, and, like, Icarus just, he unsettles me, you know? Like, he hits me the wrong way, even from the beginning, and I'm just like, ah. And, like, I didn't immediately think Icarus was a bad dude, but I was like, something's fishy about this guy, and, like, talking about how, like, he left Cersei and then didn't come back, and I was like, why would he do that? Like, if they were together for so long, why?
Yeah. They were together for 5,000 years.
Right.
And they've been on Earth for 7,000, so it's a long time.
Yeah.
And no, during, like, as soon as that scene happened, I looked over at Lizzie and I was like, this man's bad. He's a bad man. I don't know why. They're not telling us why yet, but he's a bad man. And then later on, it reveals that, you know, they're trying to do this plan to, like, help save the world or whatever. And then it flashes back to 6 days ago, which was when Icarus goes and he talks to Ajax while she's alive. And he's like, okay, so, like, when is the emergence happening? Which is what's going to blow up the whole planet. When's the emergence happening? She's like, it's happening in a week, right? And then, but she says, like, I don't know. I think we should try to stop it because look at what these humans have done. You know, when Thanos came and he snapped away half of existence everywhere, the humans were the ones who snapped them back.
Right.
You know, like, these people should not be sacrificed for this, right?
Right.
Because, like, clearly something about Earth is more valuable to the universe than having a celestial be born out of it, right? But Icarus was like, no, dude. No, that's not our job.
Our job is to come here and do the emergence. And it's interesting because, like, none of the other Eternals knew about it.
Right.
And so Ajax had told him way back when. Like, she told him in Babylon when they split up.
Yeah.
And so he's known for a while. And, like, that's why he leaves Cersei, because he couldn't lie to her. And he knew that if he told her, she wouldn't be on the same page with him.
Right.
And so I lost what I was saying.
So because of that disagreement, he takes her to Alaska because he found out that some deviants had been frozen in the ice and they actually hadn't been killed, and they were re-emerging because, you know, the ice caps were melting.
Yeah, I thought it was funny because, like, global warming, you know, like, that's why ice caps are melting. But they're like, it's because of the emergence.
Because of the emergence, right. I
love it.
So the ice caps are melting. These 3 or 4 or 5 deviants are coming out, and he takes Ajax to them, and Ajax, like, well, if you're gonna kill me, like, why don't you just kill me yourself, you know? And he gave some reason, I forgot. Like,
essentially, like, they're gonna come looking for you, and, like, they need to see that it's because of the deviants, and that's gonna send them down that path, whatever. Blah,
exactly. Blah. So he throws her down there, and Ajax's power is just that she can heal herself, right? She's not a very combative Eternal, right? So she gets immediately just dumpstered by these deviants, and there's this one deviant who's the leader of them, who can absorb her powers.
Right. I wonder if he's the leader because he killed her.
Right.
Because after he absorbs her powers, he then, like, gives like, he changes, and then he gives changes to the other deviants, like, gives them wings and stuff like that.
Right.
So that they're, like, his. So I think that he became the leader because he absorbed Ajax's powers.
But he was already bigger than the other deviants. But I mean, who knows, right? So he absorbs her powers, and then Icarus takes Ajax's body, plants it back at her house that everybody finds, and like, oh my God, Ajax got killed by a deviant before we got here. But no, dude, Homelander doing Homelander things.
Right, and then so something else that we didn't really think about is the reason that the other deviants are attacking the Eternals, because before they would only attack humans. Because they're attacking the Eternals is because they absorbed Ajax's memories.
Right.
And so they see the truth behind why they're there and what the Eternals are there for and stuff like that. And they're like, these people are here just to kill us.
Right.
And, like, they follow Ursham, and he's bad and whatever. So they are like now going after the Celestials, and that's why or not the Celestials, the Eternals, and that's why they go to London and they only attack Cersei and Sprite. They don't attack the people.
Right, because it turns out that the Eternals and the Deviants are not so different after all, and that they were both created by Aramesh or whatever his name is Erisham for the same exact reason. It's just that he created the Deviants first, but he created them out of like biological matter, and then they evolved, and they were there to destroy the prey of budding planets that would destroy intelligent life. So they were supposed to eat the predators.
Right, and it was funny because they were the meteors that they killed the dinosaurs.
Right. And then so they kill all the other predators, but they evolved and became the predators of Earth as well. So Erisham was like, hold up a second, I need intelligent life in order to be born again or whatever. So now I got to make these Eternals out of
he said synthetic matter
so that they won't evolve, and they're I can program them to just attack the Deviants and make sure that intelligent life is able to sprout and become
right. So they came as protectors of the humans, which is the intelligent life on the planet.
So once the Deviants found this out by absorbing Ajax's powers and memory, they were like, that ain't cool, dog. So they started killing all the other Eternals. And then, they're in a battle scene in the Amazon, which is where Druig was hanging out. And I didn't like Druig, but he's okay. But I still don't like him.
I don't like him as a person.
Right.
He's a funny character, and I like his development, and I like his little thing with the fast girl. That's cute.
Right. I hate this.
Who said that? Was it Kingo?
Kingo.
I love Kingo. But he was hanging out there, and he was mind controlling the group of people.
Right.
Yeah.
And then so a bunch of the Eternals are there, and the Deviants show up, and now the Eternals are having to fight the Deviants, and now is my saddest part of the movie. So let me give you some context about this. Gilgamesh and Athena, right? Athena has
Mind
Weary, which is just all of the memories that she has are just fragmenting her mind.
Right, and it's because, so they don't explain it in this moment, but because every time they do this, Aramesh wipes their memories and starts over, but something went wrong when he wiped her memories last time,
and it didn't go perfectly.
Right, so she still has some memories that were supposed to be wiped, and so she's getting flashes of those memories, and they're not making sense with the memories that she has.
Right,
and so that's kind of making her a little wonky.
Right, and she becomes violent towards the other Eternals for some reason, just because her mind is not right, and this mostly gets triggered when other Deviants attack, right? So she's just not in a good state, which is unfortunate because she's probably the best warrior that they have in the Eternals, right? And so now Gilgamesh, he promised to protect her, and Ajax was like, listen, it might get to the point that she goes a little crazy and you might have to kill her. And he was like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And he figured out a way to kind of calm her down, similar to how they calmed down the Hulk, right? He's like, give me your hand, and they do that whole thing. Right. And at one point, Gilgamesh and Icarus are fighting a Deviant at the same time. But then Icarus is like, I got to go help the other people, right? So now Gilgamesh is there protecting Athena, who's just having a breakdown right now while he's fighting the big bad Deviant.
And then the Deviant goes after Athena. And so he's still getting in the way, and then he manages to get away with it, right? Because, the Deviant catches Athena.
Right, and then Gilgamesh punches it.
Oh, Gilgamesh punches it. Okay.
Right. And then, so he kind of protects Athena for a little bit, and then he is fighting the big bad Deviant, and then he eventually gets killed by the Deviant, and I was so friggin' sad, dude. And then, when that happens, the Deviant evolves itself and becomes, it stands on two legs, and, it can talk to us.
Humanoid,
it becomes sentient, right. And then it explains to us, I absorbed the memories, blah, 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 and I'm gonna hunt you all down, and I'm gonna kill you all. And it's just so sad knowing that, it's Icarus's fault that Gilgamesh died, because Icarus was just like, yeah, I'm out of here. I'm just gonna let you do this, and if you kill him, you kill him. If you don't, that's all right.
Right, but I mean, Gilgamesh let Icarus go.
Right.
Yeah, he was because all the other ones were going towards the humans, right? And Gilgamesh was like, I got this. I got Athena. go save the rest of the people.
Exactly.
You know, and so like it wasn't Icarus's fault in that scenario. The reason that I think it's Icarus's fault is because he gave them Ajax.
Right. Oh,
and
yeah,
like if they wouldn't have killed Ajax, none of this would have happened.
Right.
You know? Like they would have gone on to fight the humans, and then we would have fought them as a team, and it would have been fine, and everything would be okay, and then the emergence would have happened, and you know, he would have gotten his wish, but he dumb.
Yeah. And now I need to talk about my second favorite dude, Fastos, right? So after they do the Amazon, they're talking to Druig. They're like, okay, like we have this plan that involves you, but we're going to need some help from Fastos. And Druig was like, I don't know. I think Fastos is kind of given up on humanity. And then it cuts back to 1945, Hiroshima, and Fastos is just, you know, sitting there in the wake of the nuclear bomb, and he's crying, he's emotional. He's like, I've done this. Like I was the one who was able to help them technologically advance to this point, and I've caused this. And he basically has this moment where he's like, they don't deserve this. They don't deserve me. Like humans don't. Like I'm not helping them anymore. I'm wiping my hands of all this. And like it was something that I could definitely understand. You know, like it was a terrible thing. And he saw it. He saw that he had a direct impact on it, and he was like, "I'm out. Like my powers are bad."
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So, you know, we track him down, and then we find this awesome scene where, you know, he has a husband and he has a kid, and the kid's just playing football in their front yard. And he's fixing up the bike because, you know, he works with his hands.
Right. And, like, I love that he's actually, like, fixing it with his hands. Because
Right.
he makes a comment about that later. Like, oh, now I don't use my powers. I use my hands to fix my kid's bike. And, like, that's it. And then I think it was Icarus who then, like, shoots something at the window. And, like, it doesn't break.
He eye lasers the window.
Right. And he's like, oh, yeah, only using your powers with your hands or whatever. And then he goes, what's this table made out of? Probably vibranium. And he breaks it.
He's like, it's IKEA.
I think that was in one of the commercials, but I still love it.
Yeah. And then, like, they kind of call him out on it. They're like, Fastos, I thought you gave up on humanity. Like, why are you having this family? Like, why do you even care about them? He was like, this family that I have has taught me all of the good aspects of Miami, like of humanity. Like they give me hope, you know, they give me a reason to believe, like they find happiness in the worst circumstances, blah, blah, all these things. Right. And it's like, man, like I really felt for Fastos because like he, as much as they kind of portray Cersei to be the person who loves humanity the most and is like the most human, I really think it's Fastos because like he's in that life, you know, and like he wants nothing, like he does not want to be an eternal, really. Like he just wants to live out a human life. Right. But, you know, he is eternal and he's not giving that up either, so.
Right. And so, with that being said, Sprite, Pobrecita, she
Poor girl.
Oh, sorry. She loved Icarus and she, like, wanted to, like, go out and, like, be an adult and, like, do the things. Like, she's...
Right. She's 7,000 years old.
Yeah, she's super old. But she looks like she's 13, you know? And, like, that's awful for her. And so at the end of it, when Cersei makes her human, I was like, okay, like, are you going to ask who else wants it? Because Fastos probably wants to live out his life with his husband and, you know, stuff like that. And, like, are you going to do it to yourself? Because, like, you want to go and be with Dane, right?
Right, yeah.
So, I don't know.
Right. But it was pretty good. And then in the end battle, or like, so like leading up to the end battle, they have this conversation of like, all right, this is what our plan is. We're going to get Druig to mind control the Celestial, but we have to do it together. We have to make the Unimind. And everybody was like, that's a dumb name. And he was like, I don't care. I made it.
I liked Brainstorm better.
Yeah, Brainstorm was better. Kingo had a point. And then they're like, okay, like, you know, like, should we do this? And they're all looking at Icarus. They're like, all right, like, what's up, boss man? Because, you know, they're like, he's the most powerful person. But Ajax chose Cersei to be the leader of them. Mm-hmm. And then Icarus was like, I don't know, dude, like, listen to whatever Cersei has to say. And then he left. Right. And they're like, no, dude. Yeah. And then, you know, Cersei, like, he leaves, and then Cersei's like, and then everybody else kind of leaves, and so she goes off after him, and she's like, what, like, what's up? Like, you don't want to do this? And then he gets into it. He's like, listen, like, we came here for the emergence. This is our job. I knew about this for, you know, however long,
years or whatever,
and that's the reason why I left you, because I couldn't bear to keep that secret from you. But if you guys try and go through this plan, I will stop you, and if I have to, I'm going to kill you guys, right? And then she's like, right?
Yeah. And so they're doing this, and like Icarus is deciding to do this, and then Sprite, because she loves him, is gonna go with him. And then I love Kingo because he agrees with Icarus, but he's like, I'm not gonna kill you guys over
Right,
it.
because like they're a family. He's like, we're a family, you know. Like I'm not.
Like just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I'm gonna like kill you.
Right.
You know.
And then something like the last thing that he says to them, you know, before this whole plan goes through is like, I hope I see you guys on the next planet, right? And I appreciated that sentiment because like he's not a bad guy. He's just like, yeah, you know, I accept that this is the reality. Right. Because his point of view is valid in that. So when the Celestial gets made, he then makes like, you know, other galaxies and other planets and other things for like even more life and, you know, possibilities to happen. So he's like, why shouldn't we sacrifice these couple billion of people to make, you know, like a trillion more people who could be even better, you know? And like I understand that point of view, but also like I definitely understand Ajax's point of view that we're the people who undid Thanos' snap as well.
Like there's something special to these humans, you know? They're not just any old creatures.
Right. So after Icarus and Cersei have their conversation, Icarus goes back, and they're all like planning, and then Icarus just freaking laser beams Phastos, I think, and they're like, "Yo, what the heck?" And then Icarus tries to laser beam the fast girl, but then Kingo jumps in the way. He's like, "Mm-mm."
Yeah, because okay, so the fast girl comes back and is like, "I found it," because she's looking for where the point of the emergence is. She goes, "I found it," and then Icarus goes to laser beam her, and Kingo jumps in the way because he knows one, that's his friend,
right.
And two, like, if she dies, then we can't stop this, you know? And so Kingo jumps in the way and is like, no. And I think he tells her, like, go.
Right.
And so she runs away. And then Icarus leaves.
Right. Yeah, he leaves.
Like, we fight him a little. And...
Yeah, so he's now, like, planning the ambush or just, like, making sure that they don't try and go through with this plan. Right? But they do try and go through with the plan. So they get there and they use the little sphere that Cersei uses to talk to Arishem. Right, so to create a plan that will help them do the Unimind to combine their powers, right? So they go there, and they're trying to make sure that Druig can mind control the Celestial to be like, go to sleep, just go to sleep, right? So they get there, and they have the ship like kind of as a decoy, and only Athena is on the ship, and Icarus shows up, and he's like, you don't want to fight me. He's like, you can't beat me. And she's like, I've been wanting to find out.
I've always wanted to try. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So they have their little fight. And then in the middle of the fight, like they start doing the Unimind thing. And Icarus is like, I got to stop that. So he stops fighting Athena, goes over there.
And he finds Druig and he laser beams Druig.
Right
and he
into
goes,
the earth.
Yeah, he goes into the earth and they're like, oh no, Druig's dead. But I was like, Druig's not dead.
Yeah, Druig's not dead. And now it comes time for Cersei to do what she has to do because earlier she was able to turn a deviant into a tree, which is something she's never been able to do before. Right. She can't turn a sentient being into something else. But now that she was able to show this flash of power, and that if they combine their powers, maybe they'll be able to do this. And so
I think she was able to do that because of this sphere.
Right.
Like I think that gave her a
right,
boost.
The connection, yeah.
And so now she's able to do that. So she goes and she tries with the Celestial, and she's doing it, and then Icarus comes in, and he looks at her, and she's like, she stops, and she's like, "Are you gonna do it?
Right.
Are you gonna laser me?
Right.
I'm your girlfriend for 5,000 years.
Wife, actually, they got married.
Oh yeah, that's right, they got married. I was gonna say wife, but then I was like, I don't know.
No, they got married.
And then and then he starts crying, and he doesn't want to do it, and she keeps going. She's like, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
And then she does the thing.
Yeah, she does the thing, and then it works out, and then they're all like, we did it, and Icarus is kind of just like y'all did it, and he realizes that he failed at his purpose, one. Right. And two, like, because of this, basic ideological difference that him and Cersei have, like, I guess he realizes that they just will not work together. Yeah, I mean, because he tried to kill her family.
Right. He's understanding that, like, he failed, first of all. And then two, in trying not to fail, he attacked the only people that he could be with, you know? Like, they're going to live forever.
And they're going to hate him.
And they're going to hate him. Like, he tried to kill them.
Right.
And so he...
flies into the sun.
He flies into the sun.
I was like...
He lives out the little story of,
Icarus,
close to the sun.
Close to the sun, right? So he flies into the sun. We assume he's dead. It's the sun.
It's the sun.
And then, okay, whatever. Movie's over. Cersei makes Sprite a human, and now she has to go to school, and she's like, man, right?
Go to school.
All good times, right? And now we have the post-credit scenes.
Yeah, the first one was Harry
Eros.
Styles.
Yeah.
Star Fox. Eros. Who's Eros?
Eros. Star Fox, Eros, same thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Noticia.
Yeah, he called himself Eros and
Okay.
Star Fox.
So he comes in. He's another Eternal from a different planet.
From Titan.
Oh, that makes sense.
And he's Thanos' brother.
Yep.
He's Thanos' brother. That's what he says.
Yeah.
He is not purple.
Not purple.
Not
He
purple.
looks like Harry Styles.
He looks like Harry Styles, right?
And he's got a little guy Pip.
Right. And apparently, Eros' main power is that he's just very charming. And I guess that's why they got Harry Styles, right? So it's just like, hey, new character, right? That's basically what that...
But I think he's like a one-off kind of thing. Like, I don't know that he's going to be like that big
I don't
deal.
know.
Because it's like, he was coming to tell the Fast Girl and Druid...
Athena.
Oh, I forgot that Athena was with them. They're going out to find the other Eternals and tell them what happened and tell them their purpose.
Right.
And he comes up and he's like, hey, your other Eternal friends, they're in danger.
They're in danger.
Because Arishem came and he took them.
Right.
And like, it was,
Oh, yeah.
So Cersei is there with Dane and they're like walking through the park, whatever. And she's like, okay, here's the whole deal. Here's who I am. Here's what happened.
Right.
And then he goes, and he's
like, you know what we said about no more secrets?
Yeah, and he's like, so my family has this history. And then as he's about to like reveal his whole thing, she gets...
Yeah, because Arishem just shows up and he's like, yeah.
Yeah, and he takes her and takes the other Eternals.
Who are on Earth.
Right. So her, Kingo, and
Fastos, yeah. Just gets sucked up.
Right.
And he's like, okay, you wanted to save the humans? I'm going to look at your memories and judge whether or not they should be saved.
Right.
And he takes them away.
Yeah.
And so he cut off Dane Whitman when he was about to tell Cersei, like, what is up with his life. And look, this is our cat, Loki.
This is our cat. His name is Loki.
His name's Loki. Can you imagine why?
And so he takes them, and then so Star Fox is there telling the other people, like, hey, they've been taken, essentially. So, like, I think he's going to be in the coming Eternal when they, like, try to find them or whatever, and they save them and stuff. But, like, I don't think he's going to be, like, a lasting character because it's Harry Styles.
Right. So that was the mid-credit scene. Now we're going to get into the end-credit scene or post-credit scene, whatever you want to call it. And it's basically them telling us or showing us, like, what is the deal with Dane Whitman's character, what's his backstory and all that stuff, right? So he's in this room. There's a box in there, and he opens up the box, and there's a sword in there, and you can tell it's a special sword.
Right.
And like there's an inscription written in a different language, but it translates to "Death is my reward."
Yeah.
Right. And he's like about to touch it, and like you can see like the blade like kind of
it like oozes out, and it's funny because in the previews, one of the previews was for Morbius, and he says, I'm not Venom. And so then when I saw the thing like moving like that, I was like, haha, Venom. you know?
Yeah, it did kind of look like a symbiote type of thing.
Right.
It wasn't.
Question mark?
No. And then as he's like about to grab the blade, I forgot exactly what a voice said, but the voice says like, are you ready for this?
Right.
Like, are you sure about this?
Are you sure you want to do this, Mr. Whitman?
Right. Are you sure you want to do this, Mr. Whitman?
Yeah, something like that.
Right. And then it
cuts to black.
Right.
And so we did not know really anything about Dane Whitman. So we did a little Googling.
Right.
And so we find out that he's the Black Knight and that this sword is the Ebony Blade, which I thought when I read that, I was like, that's so funny because earlier they talk about it. Like Athena's like, or like they're in the ship with the Fast Girl and
she has all these artifacts.
And they have the sword and they're like, oh, is that the Ebony Blade? And she's like, no, it's Excalibur. And they're like, oh, you always had a thing for Arthur, whatever.
Right. But they did bring up the Ebony Blade earlier in the movie.
Right, which also comes back to that same time with Arthur. And it was made by Merlin.
Right.
I'm sorry, you wanted to say that. Go for it. It was made by Merlin and all this stuff. And so it's like really cool. And so we're going to get to see Dane Whitman become this Black Knight because now like he's going to do this to go help find the Eternals and find Cersei. Right. And we know from like comics and stuff that the Black Knight joins the Avengers, and so it's gonna be cool to get to see him team up with people we already know,
right? And
like just see that grow.
Yeah. There is a caveat to this blade, though, in that so along the lines of the death is my reward. When I first saw that, I thought that like if you pick up this blade, like you're doomed to die in some kind of like tragic way, right? But that's not what it is. It's that it imbues you with like an insatiable bloodlust, right?
Right.
So in the past, like his family, like I believe his uncle was another Black Knight, but he was bad.
Right.
He was bad dude, and he got by the bloodlust. So I don't know how he's gonna overcome this bloodlust, but he's supposed to be a good guy.
Right. And like I think that's also like why it was like wrapped up in a way, like because it's like as soon as you touch it, so it's like wrapped up so that you can't touch it kind of thing. And like why that like symbiote looking thing like came at it, you know?
Yeah. And according to the director of the movie, the mysterious voice that we hear is Blade's voice, the vampire, the half vampire dude. And like, you know, Blade is a movie that's coming out, but like me personally, I don't really understand why it would be his voice. I'm sure that they would have an explanation as to why, but like he's just some like random vampire dude guy off there, and like I guess they're connected by a bloodlust similarity, so like
and,
maybe he'd be able to help him with that.
Maybe if we knew more about the comics, there'd be like more correlation between the two, like maybe they fought alongside each other, or maybe like previous Black Knights fought alongside him and stuff like that.
Yeah. But my first thought, once you know we heard like, you know, the kind of backstory of the Ebony Blade, like I thought it was like Merlin's voice, and you know, like sure, like Merlin might be dead now probably,
right,
but you know, he's a magical being. Like he could just be like, hey,
right, like it could come like just from like a message that's pre-recorded with
like
from
the blade, right, or like maybe the blade has some kind of knowledge that like Merlin like put himself in there and being like, oh, okay, that's Dane Whitman. Are you sure about this, Dane?
Right. But yeah, so really good movie, and now that you have the spoilers, that means you already saw it, so you know it's a really good movie. Go ahead and drop in the comments what your rating was. Like we said earlier, definitely thinking a solid 7.
Right. We would love to know what you think about the movie, or if there's anything that we missed that, you know, you wish that we talked about.
Oh, if you know who Kingo was referencing earlier, he said that someone was following him, and then now they're an Avenger.
Right. We both missed it in the movie. Like we both didn't hear which name he said.
Yes.
So if you did hear it in the movie, let us know in the comments.
Drop it in the comments. So make sure to comment that or your rating below. I'd love to know what you thought of the movie. And thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our future videos. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye. My furry little
Where's my
dude.
mouse?